All right, kiddos. Here we are with another lesson. We're going to finish up Standard 8 5.6, hopefully here today. It's a good bit to cover, but we're going to kind of crush. All right, land grant colleges. Land grant colleges. Um, Still kind of sticking with that agricultural theme. Let's look at the indicator. So, Standard 8 5.6, we're going to compare the plight of farmers in South Carolina with that of farmers throughout the United States, including the problems of overproduction, natural disasters, and sharecropping, and encompassing the roles of Ben Tillman, the populist, and land grant colleges. All right, let's press. So, around 1886, this dude named Tillman began asking for funding for an agricultural college in South Carolina. He's like, yo, we got a bunch of farmland, so shouldn't we have a college for farming? Yeah. All right, so it makes good sense. It really does. He spoke out at the Farmers Convention. And he thought that USC and the Citadel were too elitist. So, in other words, he thought these were just a bunch of, academic, you know, I guess people that are out espousing these ideas of of knowledge and academia and study and writing and reading, blah 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 blah. But he's like, hey, we need something that's practical. We need something that South Carolinians can take with them, their education, and go out and use what is available to them in South Carolina and make an honest living. So the idea behind that is, well, hey, we have farmland, so we need to train farmers. All right, it's much like a technical college today. So instead of going to USC or going to one of the other, colleges, like say, take a private college like PC Presbyterian College or something like that, where you're going to go get a liberal arts degree. He's trying to create something that's practical, much like the technical schools of today. All right, so Tillman's requests where they were ignored at first, and funds were sent to USC to begin an agricultural program. So he's like, "Hey, well, the state's kind of like, well, we've already got a major university, so why don't we create a new department within that university that's going to teach and train agriculture?" All right, that does make sense. That does make sense. This angered Tillman, though. Tillman basically was bent on getting his way or the highway, so to speak. And so he issued a farewell letter, kind of resigning his position um, from the farmers' convention. Now, let's talk about this though. Luckily, he did not have to wait too long to get the agricultural college that he wanted, though. So Thomas Green Clemson died in 1888. So when Thomas Green Clemson died in 1888, we'll see a university named after him that became the premier agricultural school in our state and one of the premier agricultural schools in the United States of America. So Thomas Green Clemson was the son-in-law of John C. Calhoun, and all of his children died before him, and he had no heirs. So he had no one to leave all of his estate to. So he ended up leaving his estate and $80,000 to start a college. Okay, so he left everything that he was worth to start some sort of an academic college. So we have the Morrill Act, and it gave land and funding to agricultural colleges. So this is a state government issue here. And Tillman knew Clemson and made sure that his wishes were carried out. Clemson would have a board of this is the university we're talking about now. Clemson would have a board of trustees, 13 total. Tillman would pick 7 of them, and the Clemson Agricultural and Mechanical College was founded in 1889. Okay, 1889. So Tillman cut the funding for the agricultural program at USC and made cuts to the faculty there because he was like, well, we don't need you guys, and we're going to divert all of that funding to the premier agricultural university of South Carolina. So the big idea was we don't need that. All right. He also founded another university called Winthrop University, and Winthrop is an all-female school, and it trains teachers. It's still to this day very well known in education. So that means that you've got um, 2 schools. One that's there to create educators for what's called secondary education. That means like K through 12 in modern terms. And then you've got another one that's serving as the mechanism to get people employed afterwards. So, sort of a technical school at that time being agriculture. So, and just in case you missed it, Ben Tillman himself, to give you a little bit of background, he's an American politician. He was a Democrat, and he served as the governor of South Carolina. So, from 1890 to 1894 is when he was serving. He was also a United States Senator from 1895 until 1918. Um, but needless to say, he did graduate from the University of South Carolina, and that was his college alma mater. But all that back and forth with his desire kind of left a tainted relationship. So now let's continue. Let's get on to segregation and racial violence. Segregation and racial violence. There's not much really to add to it. It's the same exact standard and indicator. We're just now talking about this topic of segregation and racial violence. So here we go. Let's learn about the white primary. So the primary system was another way to reduce African Americans' right to vote. So even to this day, we still have primaries. They're not designed to be racist anymore. That's not what it's about. But a primary is where political parties nominate candidates for office by holding state and county conventions. So what they do is they have a pre-election. So what that means is you actually have people come together. They nominate people for the primary within a party. So only Republicans registered Republicans participate in the Republican primary. Only registered Democrats participate in the Democratic primary. So, in other words, what you have is Democrats are coming together to choose who they want to run for the real main election, and Republicans are coming together choosing who they want to run in the real main election. And then whoever wins their internal party election then is actually the person that is put out to be the candidate for the real national and statewide elections. So that's how, in other words, a primary system is how you choose the final candidate for the real competition. Okay. But these initial primary systems were rooted in some racist bigotry. So the rule for voting in the primary, if you voted for Wade Hampton in 1876, then you could vote in the primary. Literally, you had to have voted for the racist dude Wade Hampton in 1876 in order to be allowed to vote in the primary. That rule would obviously keep most African Americans from voting. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Okay, so the first primary was held in 1896, and only 14,000 African Americans voted total because of these rules. So let's talk more about segregation and racial violence. In 1898, South Carolina passed Jim Crow. All right, Jim Crow is nothing more than the simplified colloquial term for legal segregation. And legal segregation means that, quote unquote, blacks and whites are separate, okay? Separate, but equal. So, in other words, they got the same opportunity, but they don't do anything together. Well, separate but equal turns out to not be equal, okay? And that's the real problem with it. It's just inherently wrong on its face, and it also turns out to not be even remotely fair to begin with. Okay, so in 1898, railroad cars were segregated, ferries were segregated in 1904, and in 1915, mill workers were segregated. And it came to the point where basically there was literally almost two different Americas happening at once. All right, there was the quote unquote, I'm doing my air quotes right now because the reality is that we're all just a different various shade of brown, and there really is no such thing as race because we've talked about this 1,000 times in class. But the point is, these dum-dums are out here saying, well, blacks, you go do your thing over there. Whites, you go do your thing over there. And you won't even have to play nice because you just won't play together at all. All right, and that's segregation. Now, let's keep on moving. Let's see where we're at. Yes, African American leaders. So let's talk about Thomas E. Miller. All right. This guy's from Beaufort, South Carolina, down there just north of Savannah, Georgia, on the coast. And he served in the state legislature and in Congress. And he urged the formation of South Carolina State College. Okay. Served as the president of the college. This is a big opportunity for African Americans to have a university that was accepting of them. So African American leaders continued. We've got Richard Carroll from Barnwell, South Carolina, was a Baptist minister, so a man of the cloth, so to speak. In other words, someone who is an ordained minister, preacher, so to speak. Graduated from Benedict College, another historically black college, and supported Booker T. Washington's idea of accommodation. Now, Booker T. Washington, he some people look down upon him, but I think he should be highly respected. I think that Booker T. Washington's idea of accommodation was genius. Okay, he was being a realist. It isn't that he didn't think that African Americans deserve to be at the same station as quote unquote white people, but he was being real in knowing that society was not ready for 100% acceptance immediately. So, in other words, he was like, hey, we're going to accommodate this, and then we're going to earn our position, prove our position in society, and that we deserve 100% the same rights as everyone else. And that was a very smart and very, very competent way to achieve it. So anyway, that's going to be the end of our lesson for today. We will pick up tomorrow, no, excuse me, not tomorrow, Wednesday, with Ben Tillman and the dispensary. All right, so we have covered everything we need to for today. What I'd like you to do now is to follow along on that Hawk Flight slide, and then you will see a hyperlink for a flip grid. So you should have done the Hawk Focus, you should have already done your attendance, and then you will click on the flip grid. And on that flip grid, you will then tell me the significance of the three topics that are located there. The significance of the three topics located there. All right. You'll see them right there on the Hawk Flight slide. That's the question. Very simple. Your video should be at least 2 minutes long. I would love to see your faces, and I'll try and respond back to you guys. All right. You guys take care. Have a great, great day.